Hey, Simmer and Casey. Now, what you guys think
Quiet
about
on set,
today?
Jayla.
Quiet on set. That actually brings us to our very conversation of today's podcast.
I'm Zena Taha.
And I'm Simmer Catwall.
And our topic today is on the recent documentary about called Quiet on Set about Dan Schneider and all the tragedies that occurred during Nickelodeon's time that we didn't know of as viewers.
Right. So just to kind of get a little bit of an overview with the whole situation, Dan Schneider is a very popular producer who actually had constructed a lot of the shows that we grew up loving on Nickelodeon.
Like Victorious, iCarly, Drake and Josh, all shows that I still watch to this day.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
And at the time, we always were like, oh my, like, just as viewers, we always wanted to like live their lifestyle.
Right.
We thought it was so lavish.
Mm-hmm.
But now seeing like everything that was occurring behind closed doors, you really don't know what happens. And this documentary really showed like what was really happening behind closed doors.
Mm-hmm. So tying back to sort of the scope on what Dan Schneider is and who he is, he started off producing a show called She's All That, or He's All That?
She's All That
She's
with
All That. Amanda Bynes was his kind of prodigy at the time, and things escalated very quickly. People were starting to note of Dan's work because he was sort of taking a different approach into the whole television aspect of things. We've seen a lot of shows that were just cartoonish, but we hadn't seen someone really captivate what teen life is like and kind of connect to that viewership and that target audience. So Dan definitely did a good job with that, and that led to a lot of controversies. He started gaining a lot of traction, a lot of networking opportunities, and he slowly made his way up the Hollywood scale.
We also started noticing, even before the documentary, how some of the jokes he used to make was very inappropriate, especially with the like girls like cast, especially when they were underage. There was a lot of jokes that people could take a certain way, but we didn't really get to hear like the actual actors' perspectives until this documentary came out. So yeah, we got to hear a lot. We got to hear from
Amanda Bynes. Jeanette McCurdy came out with a book, and she had actually been offered $300,000 when she originally started on Sam and Cat, right? Sort of as a hush money thing, where it's like, hey, I'll give you money if you agree to not talk about the issues that occurred during this time frame. And she never ended up taking it. Granted, she had a lot of family stuff going on. The money would have helped out. But it's good she didn't, because she sold her book and it sold millions, and she made a lot more than she would have.
Yeah, I think that was just the start of hearing of people like coming out with their stories about Dan Schneider. So yeah, we got to hear a lot.
We heard from Drake Bell's story, and that allowed for us to see just the severity of the situation. Like, Dan was kind of the orchestrator of the whole thing, so a lot of producers and big shot people who were a main point and main priority in the sort of formation of this childhood TV show series successes, they were on set working with these child actors when they really shouldn't have been. People that are child predators, people that were sexually, like they were convicted of, sexual offenses, and it kind of shows that having a younger, audience or
a
young
cast.
Child, workers in general, it's just, we need to protect those rights and those kids as a whole, as opposed to just putting them in situations where because people came out saying that they were getting massages from Dan, or that they had to give Dan massages. There was a shared salary pay between two female writers who were a big part in the shows that he made success. So he just displayed sexism, racism. A lot of child actors came out talking about their trauma that they gained from this, and I think he just did so much more damage than he thought he would.
Yeah, I think it also brought a lot of insight about how there should be more laws on child
protection
actors.
laws.
The documentary also showed that the parents of the children under 18 were not allowed to be on set. It was only adults that were working the set, even though people were coming out and saying, hey, they're doing this to me, they're being inappropriate. Those laws weren't in place that their parents have to be there.
Exactly.
So it's really good that this documentary came out and shed light, and that there's new laws protecting that, because at the time when we were just thinking, wow, this is so cool for them to have these cool jobs, we didn't really know that behind closed doors that they were going through this. Yeah.
It's just I think definitely as a whole, this whole situation was just horrible.
Yeah.
Having all these child actors and actresses being in such a vulnerable position and having to come out years later and share their experiences, it's really sad, especially for like our generation, because we grew up on Drake and Josh and Victorious and, you know, all these iCarly, and it's like really sad to see that these child actors who we looked up to had to endure all this trauma that we didn't even know about.
Yeah.
And the signs were there. There were so many inappropriate jokes. And if you actually watch the television series that we're talking about, that's, you know, rewatching it, you'll see a lot of discrepancies in their behavior.
From now, Dan Schneider has put out, he made a podcast with another member of That World,
iCarly.
Another like TV member
Right.
that was there. He was an adult, he wasn't young at the time, and he basically said he denies all of the sexual
Allegations.
abuse and everything. He says that the jokes were inappropriate, but he said it wasn't as like, it was meant for the audience that it was meant for.
Right.
And from now, he thinks that like he didn't really do much wrong. He does apologize for some of the inappropriate jokes, but he all in all said that it was okay for the show.
Yeah.
So yeah, he got a lot of backlash from that. From a lot of the audience were saying that that's not right. Like you can't make those jokes, because I was watching Victorious and Drake and Josh and everything when I was really young. Like
She still watches it to this
I
day.
still watch it, but when I started watching it, I was like 7, 8. So yeah, and I should have not been exposed to that
Yeah.
crude indecency.
Yeah, it's really sad, but I think you kind of learn. I think now we've seen that Nickelodeon has put out a statement regarding like the child protection laws and the things that they're going to implement to make sure in the future it doesn't happen again, right? And I think that we'll definitely see improvement. But this docuseries, it's sad that the same people who produced the shows that were allowing for these allegations to take place and the sexual abuse to take place are the same people that produced the Netflix series. And it took that series for people to actually be like, wow, this is something that's occurring and it needs to be
Spread
fixed.
awareness, yeah.
Right, exactly. And it's kind of sad because it wasn't just allegations alone. Like, there were situations with like big stars like Jamie Lynn Spears, Britney Spears' daughter or sister. And she had come out saying that she was impregnated by Dan Schneider before the show had ended. And that is just such a crazy thing that happened. So I don't know. It really puts in perspective how bad the situation was. But all in all, if we had to say one thing to just sort of tie up this podcast, I'd say
We're glad that people are talking about it, and Dan Schneider isn't working with children anymore.
Yeah.
I think he's retired.
same thing with Brian Peck, all the other horrible people.
Horrible people, yeah. We're also glad that there's more laws against child actors, just making sure they get paid fairly. They're monitored by a trusted adult, and everything like that. We're glad that these things come out and these documentaries come out, so it's not really swept under the rug, even though it was like in the 2010s and the early 2000s.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Thank you so much for
Thank
watching
you
our
for
podcast. We
listening.
hope you enjoyed, and
Bye.
don't forget to stay quiet on set.
Quiet on set.
Ah!